All right, we're back. 7:55 is real. We took a little break because we wanted all the dust to settle on the trade deadline and all that, so we didn't do a podcast and pick up dated within 2 hours. So, but all the dust is settled down, and we got the team that we know they're going to have. I'm with Eric O'Flaherty, former Braves reliever. What's going on, Eric?
What's up, Dave?
It's not like the old days, man. Remember when they got like Derek Lee in one of those August trades?
Yeah.
There used to be some big trades, waiver trades. There are no more of those.
Yeah, the deadline used to be, there's so many more teams in it now, too.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was fewer teams involved then, and you knew even if you didn't get the guy at trade deadline, it was a deadline, but you still had a good chance of getting some. Because if a team would really collapse in August,
exactly,
they would decide, okay, we'll move Derek Lee, the Cubs, and you can get a guy. So not anymore. If you don't have them now, you can still get waiver claims, but that's it. And the only guys that are going to be waived are pretty bad for the most part.
Yeah, once you clear, you clear the designated window, but yeah,
and the Braves are at the end of the claiming line too. So if somebody attractive comes on there, somebody else is claiming them before they get to the Braves.
Even though a couple of the guys they picked up, like Pierce Johnson, especially, you might have been able to, with his numbers, you might have been able to get a guy like that for free. But he's pitched pretty well already.
That guy's got too good stuff.
Yeah. I agree.
Too good. I don't know how he has 6 ERA because he is way better than that. He looked good today.
His breaking ball's dirty. Yeah, it's just Coors Field, man, and I think it's not just when you're there. It's when you go on the road and come back. Like you're always adjusting.
Yeah. So even if you don't have a huge disparity between the two, it still affects you on the road too because of what was happening when you were at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what people look and see. That there's not much of a disparity between his numbers, and they assumed, he just was bad. It's like, no, that's not the case, man, because Coors can really screw you up.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got a nasty breaking ball.
Yeah. He lives off it too. He throws it a lot, but it's one thing, I see guys and you see him pitch once or twice for other teams, and you forget about him. You don't really zone in. But when you're like looking at a guy and saying, all right, I want to know what makes this guy good, then you see even he'll throw a backup breaking ball inside to a righty at buckle, and then he'll throw a good one. You're like, that's got just a little more kick to it than a normal good breaking ball. Like it looks like a special pitch. It looks like something you could live off.
And he can throw mid-90s too.
Yeah.
That was a good pickup. And so was, and I sure didn't think I'd be saying it, but so was Chirinos, because Chirinos he didn't look too good in that first start in Milwaukee. He had some bad luck, but he didn't look too good, and he didn't get out of the fourth inning. But he looked good today, man. And talk about another guy with a breaking ball. He's throwing that split today, the split and the slider. That was that'll play, man. That gives him some more depth. I didn't even include him when I was doing my stories like yesterday about why they didn't get a starter, because they raised the bar high. To get one, they were going to have to get a really good one. And the ones that they were available that were really good, the price is too high. And they weren't just going to get a guy because of what they've got. They weren't going to block, the guys they've got. And then when you get Kyle Wright back, if they get him back in September. But, the Smith-Shavers and the Sorokas and Winans last week, they weren't just going to get a guy that's not appreciably better than those guys.
Well, yeah, look how good this team is. The way I look at it too is like you to really go deep in the playoffs, you need a 1-2 punch like the Braves have with if Fried comes back and he's anything close to what he's been, and then you got Strider. That 1-2 punch is pitching the majority of the games. If you have that, you can do pretty well. And then look at what they got behind him. You know, Charlie, Elder's done a great job. You can mix him in.
Elder only had 2 bad starts. He's gotten back on track the last 2.
Exactly. And he's a different look. And then if you get Kyle Wright back too, it's like you'd be kicking yourself for giving up big prospects for like Dylan Cease or something like that, who's attractive. Great breaking ball, but it's such a hard game to play, every trade deadline of like, who do I give up? And, when you're on the flip side of it, you see a team give up a great player for a bunch of prospects. I saw this thing, Detroit, for like Verlander, all these guys they traded.
Yeah.
And it was over whatever year span, but I couldn't tell you what a single one of those guys had done, and they'd given up 3 elite players and gotten nothing back.
Yeah, and the Braves looked into a lot of starters, a lot of good starters, and basically what teams wanted were guys like I think everybody wanted Smith Shawver,
Yeah.
and you don't give up Smith Shawver because that's a pretty special arm. I mean, maybe he ends up not being great, but he's got the goods to be great. I mean, the stuff's there, the arm is there, and his velo was up another tick or two this last start, like it was in the minors, up 98. So.
And he's been pitching for like 2 years.
Yeah,
It's like
3
a guy
years.
like that, you got to give way more time to get your answer on than a college dude that's had 3 or 4 years in your system and just has low service time.
And been playing travel ball since he was 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy started pitching at literally little over 3 years ago. So, and teams wanted him. And it's like when Alex has held on to guys in the past, like, people wanted Acuna, they wanted Riley, they wanted, or that was copy before him. But they wanted, just fill it. The guys that Strider. People wanted Strider after 21 when he went up through the organization, 4 promotions. Everybody the Braves talked to to make a big trade started with Strider.
Probably Harris. I mean, what have you traded
Harris? They wanted Harris. They wanted Harris, and Alex was mentioning those guys because he said, yes, you want to do what you can to win now, especially when you got a team this great. But you also want to be great in 24, 25, and 26. And he knows, you're not going to screw it up by trading away all your best prospects to go for it now, especially this team. I mean, they got the best record in the majors. They're the best team in the majors.
Yeah.
I mean, they showed that again today. Their offense is just mind-numbing. And I like what he did fortifying that bullpen too, because the guys they've brought in with Pierce Johnson, and then they bring in Hand yesterday. This guy was good last year for Philly, man.
Yeah.
Really good. And this is another guy with Coors Field. You got to kind of throw out what he's done there. You look at what he's done since the break, it's been really good. So he gives you another legit back of the mid to high leverage guy. You're going to have like 8, 9 guys now that you can really go to. And that's the kind of pen they had, they want to have. Like in 21, they had a really good pen, but they had like 4 guys just pitching out of their minds in the postseason.
Yeah. And Hand's been a closer in the past too. So, I mean,
another all-star closer.
Yeah.
They've got a bunch of them. Yeah. And he pitched in San Diego with Kirby Yates, and Kirby was talking about him, because both of them were so great there. And then he pitched in Colorado with Pierce Johnson, and Pierce Johnson was talking about that slider's devastating, man. This guy's elite. So getting Brad Ham yesterday was a good one. And Chirinos now, Chirino looks like he could be useful for you. If not starting when you get those guys back, there's another long reliever for you to pick from. So you got that depth. So even if they're not all on the postseason roster, you're going to have them as options as opposed to 21 when they won the World Series, despite bringing up guys like Tucker Davidson and Dylan Lee, who barely had any service time at all.
Right.
And they end up making the start in a World Series,
Yeah.
Which is crazy, but you don't want to try to do that again.
Yeah, you do not. I mean, you want to be as prepared as possible. But, I mean, it's almost like the hardest thing for me watching a season like this is knowing they could be this good all year and it could mean nothing.
Yeah.
It's so hard the playoffs are so tough. You want to be as prepared as possible, but anything can happen. Your guys can be, Strider was tired and Fried had gotten sick. It's like this season's so long.
Strider was coming off the oblique, heading out. And
not tired.
And that's the moves that Alex is making with that in mind.
Yeah.
I mean, certain things you just can't control. I mean, if Max Fried gets hurt again, it's going to be really tough. It's going to make it hard. But
if you have basically the whole year without him, though.
Right. And you've got about 6, 7 legit options for those 4 spots, those top 4 spots. And if you also build a deep bullpen, you get by with a lot more too. And you're only going to need 3 starters in the postseason. And if you got a really good bullpen, that also helps. So they're both of them are deep, but that bullpen is really deep now. And then, of course, the big difference is they got the best offense in baseball.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a game changer.
So as long as Acuna stays healthy, as long as Matt Olson stays healthy, this lineup is just wow. It is something else, man. And now Harris is playing. And now Harris is hot after, it took him about a few weeks to get going after 2 injuries. But now he looks as good as ever. He had 2 homers yesterday. He has 3 hits today. He's got his average up around 280 again. I mean, this is this lineup with Arcia down at the bottom, Harris at 9, the 9 hole. When Rosario is the weakest spot in your lineup by far, that's pretty impressive.
Great. You know what it reminds me of is like, you ever eat dinner with a bunch of people that are just they suck. You know, they're listening to everything you say and analyzing it and spinning it, and you sit through a dinner with these people, and by the end of it, you're just mentally exhausted. You don't want to talk because anything you say could get spun into some kind of offense or whatever it is. I've had dinners like that where by the end of it, you're just freaking exhausted. That's what it's got to be like to pitch against this team. Every single hitter, you have to be so freaking careful with. You roll through that thing 2 or 3 times, you got to be just mentally burnt out by the end of it.
Because you're getting home runs from the bottom guys in the order. You're going Arcia, Harris, and then you got Acuna. You're back to the top of the order with Acuna, Ozzie, Riley, and Olsen. I mean, it
turns Acuna into like a 3-hole hitter, honestly, after the first turn.
After the first inning.
Arcia, Harris in front of him. I mean, he's got base runners all the time.
And that's what Olsen said. I feel like I haven't hit without anybody on base, all year. And he's the RBI leader for a reason. I mean, now he's hitting with runners in scoring position too. But earlier he's just getting a ton of opportunities. Now he's making the most of them as well. So, I mean, what they're doing, they're going to break all kinds of records if they just keep up anything close to this pace that they're on. They're at 206 home runs. You know what second place in the majors is?
150?
169, the Dodgers.
Yeah. Who are known for this. Who are supposed to be this team.
The Braves have an 837 team OPS. That is insane, man. 837.
Well, and that's why, that's another reason why I think bullpen depth is going to be so huge in the playoffs. Because if your starter does get banged up, and has a bad start, if you can just keep it close.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, all right, the Braves game's at 4:00, and I don't get to it till like 4:15 or 4:30. I turn on the TV, it's 4-0.
Yeah.
Second inning. And it's like every freaking time I turn it on. If I don't see the first inning or the second inning.
You can't miss this team's first inning because they're crazy. I mean, they've got more hits, runs, and homers in the first inning than any other team has in any inning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane what they're doing in the first inning this year.
And they used to have all these comeback wins. They don't have them anymore because they just do it in the first 2 innings.
Yeah, they've kind of reversed that script. They were a big comeback team. They've still got some comebacks, but they are far more proficient at jumping out to the leads now and just burying teams. They've made Lucas Giolito look bad today.
He is skinny.
And he is a good pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, he's been an ace.
They made him look bad.
And it happens in a hurry, too. Like, you got the game under. Okay, I'm kind of having a bad start. I gave up 3. I'm kind of having a bad start. And when the manager starts being like, I might be able to push him through an extra inning, get him out. Don't push it. If he's starting to look like he's losing it against this team, the next thing you know, it's 9-0 or 9-1, 9-2. They put up a 5 spot in no time at all. And it's just like you said, because everybody can hurt you.
Yeah, because he gives up back-to-back jacks, 3-run homer and a solo. I mean, it's 4 runs. Boom.
You're done. Even when you start coming back, they jump out to like a 6-1 lead or something like that. Put up a couple zeros and your team scores 2 and it's 6-3. And the next thing you know, you're down 12-3. It's just like, this is stupid.
I'm looking at the Major League OPS leaders right now. You got Shohei. The Braves did a pretty good job on Shohei, man.
Yeah.
Shohei still leads at 1,084. Second is Acuna at 1,002. Your Major League stolen base leader with 51. Next is 43, the dude from Oakland, Ruiz. Next after that, second in the National League is 33. Acuna's got 51 stolen bases. Everybody thought everybody was going to go crazy on the stolen bases. They're up, but Acuna's the only one that's really like going crazy with them. Got his 25th homer today. So he's pushing. He's really pushing that pace for 40-80, man.
My God.
He's just a little, he's like 38 homers and 80. He's pushing 40-80.
I mean, he can hit 15 more. I mean, pretty easy, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. If he just gets on a little roll.
I wonder what the most bags anybody's finished a 40-40 season is.
40. it's only like high 40s.
Yeah, nobody's been up here, huh?
No, nobody's even been 40, 50. Nobody's
46.
Even been, yeah, nobody's
A-Rod got 42 and 46.
Nobody's even been 40, 50. I mean, anything he does, he's going to be the first to do. Even if he goes like 35, 70, nobody has done those numbers before.
Yeah.
So, and what he's doing has never been done. This season he's having, nobody's ever had the equal of this. Ricky's the closest. Ricky did some pretty crazy ones too with home runs and stolen bases, but never that many homers. Look at Ricky.
He hit 28 and stole 87.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then years he was stealing, like the year he stole 130, he only hit 10 homers.
Right.
He had a 24-80, a 28-65, and a 28-87. That's pretty crazy. But so Acuna's going to be right there with 40.
Yeah, so what Acuna's doing really is unprecedented. The season, the type of season he's having, the specifics. Yeah. I mean, who knows, man? This might be the greatest season of his career. You hope it's not. You hope he just stays healthy and keeps doing this. But my God, he's running every time he gets on base. He's looking to run, and he won't do that forever.
And it's shocking when he gets caught too.
It really does surprise
it's like,
you.
What happened?
He's only been caught 9 times in 60 attempts.
Yeah,
that's a damn good percentage.
And he's hitting 331.
And you know what's crazy is the strikeout rate was, a little higher than you would want in the past. Look at him this year. He's got 59 strikeouts and 58 walks. That is like old school there. If you get more walks than strikeouts, guy with that much power.
But this is what people talk about, like how your kind of talent and knowledge kind of intersect at this sweet spot. And I think he's hitting it.
Yeah.
Because he's having, like, he's had some at-bats the last couple of weeks where you could tell he knew they weren't going to throw him shit. And there's times where he'd get that 2-0 slider in the dirt and chase it, or even a 2-0 slider down the way and roll over it and kind of give away an at-bat. I don't think he's really doing that anymore. I mean, most of his at-bats are quality at-bats.
And last year also, when he kind of got frustrated and was playing hurt and everything, and even the year before, well, not so much the year before, but last year, he was taking some balls that were very hittable pitches, and we were getting frustrated because he take a fastball that got the plate.
Then
he ain't doing that this year. He's so much more a control of the strike zone. I mean, he's taking his walks when they give him. He's not striking out. He's hitting for power. His average, my God, he's raking. He's hitting 335. The dude's got so everybody talked about Soto being the great OBP guy for so long, the king. Yeah. Soto's at 425. Acuna's at 420. They're 2-3 in the majors. The difference being Soto is slugging 527. Acuna's slugging 582. Soto's got 23 homers. Acuna's got 25. Acuna's got more doubles, more triples, 1-0. He's got stolen bases, of course, 51-6. I mean, he's just a better hitter all around than Soto right now. It's Soto.
Yeah. You ever do that immaculate grid thing? Have you played with that?
I think the only American that doesn't.
Well, just the other day they had 30 stolen bases, and I just started, kind of like thinking about guys like it was like the Blue Jays or somebody like that. I'm like, Vernon Wells probably, he was fast. He probably stole 30 bags. You're thinking of guys. Rios, I'm going through it, and I'm like, I don't know anybody that steals 30 bags. Like 30 is kind of hard to get. Not a lot of fast players even get to 30, and Acuna's already got 51.
Right. Here's a great comp here. Okay, Freddie, we'd all agree Freddie's one of the best 3 hitters probably in the last 10 years, 3 to 5 hitters.
Yeah, best on base, slugging, all that. Yeah.
All right, right now, Acuna. Okay, here's batting average. Acuna 335, Freddie 334. OBP, Acuna 420, Freddie 413. Slugging, Acuna 582, Freddie 580. They're almost identical. Acuna's just better in everything. OPS, Acuna 1,002, Freddie 993. Home runs, Acuna 25, Freddie 21. Freddie's got him in doubles 36-27 and RBI 76-64. Walks, Acuna 58, Freddie's 51. Strikeouts, Acuna 59, Freddie 83.
So it's like, because when I think of Freddie, I think just pure hitter. great at bats, big situation, no matter what it is. And he's never an easy out. And Acuna's doing this while stealing 51 bags.
While leading off and sparking his offense every night.
And has a cannon in the outfield playing in the
Playing
outfield, playing his ass off.
Yeah. I don't know if he'll win a Gold Glove, but he's playing really good D with a great arm. So, I mean, it's something else. Okay. But anyway, the OPS, we're looking at it. Acuna's second behind Ohtani. Freddie's third. Matt Olson's fourth. I mean, the connections here. The first base day with the Braves. Everybody's like, oh, he's no Freddie Freeman. Okay, maybe he's not Freddie, but right now.
That talk's quieted down a little lately, though.
It has quieted down because, I mean, Olson's never going to hit for the average like Freddie, obviously, or have quite the OBP. But he's slugging 598 to Freddie's 580. He's got 37 homers to Freddie's 21, 91 RBIs to Freddie's 74. So, I mean, it's a trade-off. A little more power, a little less average in OBP. He doesn't need to have the average in OBP on this team.
No. Yeah, that's kind of the kickers when you're in this lineup, too.
Yeah.
It's like, he seems to lately at least always be hitting that homer at the right time too. Like when it really changes the game.
It's funny. The Braves and the Dodgers account for 4 of the top 5 OPSs in the majors. Freddie and Mookie and Acuna and Matt Olson, with Ohtani being above them. They got the 4 of the 5 after the next 4 after Ohtani. Dodgers and the Braves.
Ohtani hits the ball hard, doesn't he?
Oh my God, he hit that 114-mile-an-hour single today. But if you look in the National League, you got Acuna and Matt Olson 1 and 3 in OPS, and you don't have to go down too far. Austin Riley is 13th at 841. The really crazy thing is when you look at the home runs. Harris got his 10th and 11th home runs yesterday. So he gave him 9 guys with double-digit home runs, matches a franchise record that he said 99. But Darno's he's got 9, so he's going to get 10. So they're going to have 10 guys with double digits anytime now.
That's insane.
But 3 of them with 25. So they got with the home runs in the National League, you got Olsen leading. You got Acuna is 6th with 25, or tied for 6th with Austin Riley and JD Martinez. So you got, and Albie's with 24. You've got 4 Braves.
Albie's got 24.
Albie's got 24. 4 Braves in the top 10. Marcell Ozuna's got 22. So you got 5 Braves in the top 15 home runs in the National League. 5 guys from one team. 4 in the top 10.
So, 5 in the top 20 in the league.
In the league.
That's insane.
5 in the top 15.
Yeah.
What they're doing power hitting wise, you would think this was Cincinnati or Coors Field. And they're playing in it's a neutral ballpark.
Can you imagine if it was a hitter's park?
Oh my God.
Or even a hitter's park division, because you don't really you don't play your division as much now, but
neutral fields.
City Field's pretty neutral. Washington's pretty neutral. Florida's big. Philly's kind of a hitter's park, but that's it. There's like, if you're in the NL East or somewhere like that,
still, you got 26 homers from your catchers, Murphy and Darno. You got Rosario, like I said, the weak spot in the lineup. He's got a 755 OPS. Like the MLB average is like 730. Everybody in their lineup is well above average OPS.
You could put him on a lot of teams and nobody would call him a weak spot.
Yeah. I mean, he's only hitting 246, 294 OBP. That's not good. But he's got 16 homers, 48 ribbies, 16 doubles. I mean, the guy's doing some things. And he's basically a platoon guy. He's playing most of the time, but that was the only spot where you could have filled in. And they looked to possibly add there, but again, the price was too high. They weren't going to mortgage the future. And maybe if they needed to, they would have. But you look at this lineup and you go, okay, can we afford to have one guy who's not? Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah. Especially, it's not like this. The other thing is the lineup doesn't not hit good pitching. They're not just beating up on the 4 and 5.
Pitching, yeah.
They're not winning 10-1, 10-2, and then they face an ace and lose 1-3. They beat up anybody.
And Pilar, when he's in there, Pilar gives you some good at-bats, too, in left field. What do we got? Does Freddie get to 3,000 hits? We were talking about this the other day. We think he does.
I think so.
I think he does. And I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer too. I mean, barring some major injury, but the way he plays and the position he plays, there's no reason why he should have a major injury.
Well, and he plays every day. And like I've said with him in the past, is he's not a guy he just uses leverage. You know, he's not like he's a guy it's like if it was Joey Gallo or something like that, I'm like, I don't know how that guy's going to be doing in his late 30s. But Freddie stays within himself.
Yeah. Yeah. And the legacies left here too is that I know people don't want to hear about Freddie, but this playing every day thing, that Freddie started that basically. He's the one that started that in the infield. Ozzie jumped on board. Dansby jumped on board. Dansby left. And now they're entrenched there. Matt Olson wants to play every day.
Yeah.
Acuna wants to play every day. He said 162. I don't want any days off. I mean, people act like the team is putting pressure on them to do this. They're not at all. These guys want to play 162. I mean, maybe down the stretch, Snitch maybe take it out of their hands in a couple of blowouts, give them 4 or 5 innings, if not a whole day, Yeah. But they don't want to have a day off every week down the stretch, if any. And some of these guys, too, you get to that point where you get like 120 games played. You don't want to take a day off down the stretch. If you got a chance to play 162, it might be the only time in your career you get to do it.
Yeah, and sometimes those are the days where when you're hot, you get enough off days. You know, like the prescribed off days, like the scheduled ones are
right.
enough. And I always hear guys always said, that's how you put up numbers. When they talk about putting up numbers, there'd always be some young guys coming up that, my hammy's a little tight. I might need to ask for a few days. And maybe you do, but that might be the day you hit 2 homers. And you add those games up over 162 game season. You took off 10 games you shouldn't have. That you might have missed out on 8 homers.
Well, remember earlier in the year we answered some questions here on, isn't it time to give Riley and Harris a day off? They're struggling. Remember that? Harris needs to get a day off.
And then he get right on the bench.
And then he got fired. And it was like this. It wasn't a transition. It was like a 3-hit game or whatever. And he's not slowed down since.
And that might be the day you take off.
Austin Riley was the same way. He had a huge game, and he has not cooled off since then. And there was no transition period.
That's kind of how it goes, though, is you can't figure out the adjustment you made or what you're doing is working on the bench. You can feel great in BP, but that day, so much of it's confidence and momentum.
Yeah.
That day you take off because you're struggling, that might have been the day you got 3 hits and turns his whole season around. Like the season is so, like a player's season is so fragile. Like it could fall apart or get hot in one play, or one thing can click in a game, or one day you can get 3 or 4 hits and just take off because your confidence is sky high now.
I mean, if a guy like his swing is so messed up that he needs to, like, they decide it'd be better for him to work in a cage all day with sights or something. Okay, maybe that's one of those things. But a lot of times guys want to work in a cage and something clicks and they want to take it to the game. So it's like, but I did a story on that.
Singles, and now you're just like, all right, well, it takes the pressure off.
I did a story on that earlier in the week about playing, because the Braves had, when I looked at it, it was 4 of the 11 major leaguers who've played every game this season. 4 were Braves.
Wow.
Their whole infield, and Ronald Acuna, or 3 of the 4 infielders, Arcia had an IL stint, but the other 3 infielders and Acuna had played every game and still have. And there were only 7 other guys in the majors, and the Seattle was the only other team with more than 1. They had 2. So it's a Braves thing, man. And they Riley and Olsen were both saying it's a pride thing now, and Ozzie, it's a pride thing. They want to play every day.
Well, it's also you know how nice it is if you're a starting pitcher and Olsen and Harris are out of the lineup today. Every day you gotta face their best lineup, and that's intimidating.
And for Snit to be able to fill that lineup out with those 4 guys, because those are also your first 4 hitters, which makes it even better. That first 4 is fearsome, and they play every day.
Yeah, and that was like, you faced the Phillies in their heyday. You were facing Jimmy Rollins leading off, Victorino, Utley, Howard, Ibanez or Worth, But every single time you face those guys, that part of the lineup was there. And you had to deal with it. It's so nice when, like, Trout's not in the Angels lineup. How much does that change the game?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if they had one of those games, if Shohei would have taken off, Braves would have been like, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally different lineup.
In this lineup, it matters a little less because you're
right.
Okay, now we got 2 weak spots in the lineup, maybe. But
imagine how different this Braves lineup is with Acuna, without Acuna. Now, sure, you could hit Ozzy lead off, or you could hit, whoever lead off, but it's totally different than it is with Acuna up there.
Yeah. Just start the game.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, you could argue that you could make an argument, as good as this lineup is, that no team, maybe with the exception of the Angels, would miss one hitter more than the Braves would, Acuna, because of what he means to this lineup in that leadoff spot. Because they don't have another guy who's a clear leadoff guy who does the things that a leadoff guy needs to do. Ozzy doesn't really have the OBP of the type. He could do it. He did fine when he did do it, but not anything like Acuna. Plus, the big thing about Acuna, like I was talking to Olsen about this, Matt said, Acuna gets on base, and then before you know it, he's on second and he's on third. He's in scoring position almost immediately, because if he doesn't double, he singles and steals second.
Yeah.
So the game starts with him in scoring position, basically.
And if you don't pitch to him, it's a double. I mean, you have to see him, and then if he gives up a single or something, it's just instant chaos. I mean, I remember the Angels used to have these two guys, Reggie Willits and Chone Figgins, and then they had Garrett Anderson and Vlad Guerrero coming up. But you knew you had to get those two just so you had some play or some hope when their 3-4 hitters came up. And the Braves kind of have that same thing going. The only difference is, Willits and Figgins probably hit 5 homers a year, and Acuna's going to hit 40. Yeah. And Ozzy's got 20-something. It's a nightmare lineup.
Yeah, nobody's had a lineup that has this kind of power in addition to speed guys, and nobody has.
It'd be lethal if Ozzy and Acuna, nothing changed, but they were only 10 home run guys. It'd still be a pain in the ass of a lineup. Like it'd still be almost unbeatable. But when those guys can hit, I mean, they got Ozzy's got 20-something and Ronald's got almost 30. That's a 50-something homers at the top of your lineup before you even get to the sluggers.
Yeah, Ronald's got 25. Ozzy's got 24. What did I just say?
So almost 50.
Yeah. I was talking about that playing every day. It was 11 major leaguers. 4 of them were Braves that have played every game their team had. That was a few days ago. There might be one of those guys might not have played in the interim, but all the Braves still have. But Matt Olson said, I've always kind of looked at it as it's part of the job, and you try to play 162 every year, and we definitely do that here. He said you get paid to play, and you do what you can to go out and help the team win every day. You can't do it from the bench. He said we have guys that do that more so than a lot of teams in the league play every day. He said you're supposed to prepare yourself in the off season and stay strong and get yourself ready during the season to do that. As long as you're feeling good and healthy and strong, there's no reason not to run out there every day. There's
a mental aspect of it too, as far as like built-in excuses and things go.
Right. Once you take a day off.
Yeah. Well, and when you play and you're questionable, I feel like shit today. I'm worn down. I'm a little tight here. My shoulder's kind of banged up, and then you hit a homer anyway. That helps you overcome that whole feeling of, I can't do well because I don't feel good. And there's so many players that get caught up in, I have to feel great to play well. And it destroys them. And when you just make this commitment, I'm playing every day, you get to learn that lesson of, all right, I felt like shit today, but I filleted 2 singles to left. I can still help the team. And the next time you feel like shit, it's not in your head. Just go out and play. It's a big deal.
I know a lot of people that are not old enough to remember Chipper early in his career. They just saw Chipper at the end of his career, and he was out of the lineup a lot because he was banged up all the time. He was old. Yeah. I mean, he was getting hit. His shin one time when he missed about a week's worth. He had black and blue and like 4 other colors from one end of his foot all the way up to his knee when he got hit by a line drive. But Chipper had so many, and he had 2 ACLs, in his career, and he had all kinds of shit at the end. It was legitimately out of the lineup for a lot of time. But if you look at his first decade or so, he and Andrew Jones played like 158 to 162 every year.
Yep.
He played every day. And people don't realize that. But Andrew, look at his, and the way Andrew played, it's amazing. He played that many games, the way he played the game, as hard as he played, and all those diving catches. But they played every day on artificial turf, too, a lot of games, a lot of visiting parks, artificial turf.
Yeah, and that could be a big difference for these guys when they start getting toward those years, not running on basically pavement over, with carpet over it.
So, but I was talking to what you were talking about playing every day. And because I talked to, I remember very clearly when the Braves got J.D. Drew. Remember how good J.D. Drew was before he came here?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a great player. He was hurt a lot.
Yeah.
But when he was kind of like Larry Walker, but when he was healthy, he was amazing. And the Braves made a big trade for him, got him for a year before free agency. He had missed a couple of games early in the season. Kind of the pattern of his career. If he had something, he's sore, he's a little sick, whatever, he didn't play. Well, he got scratched a couple of times. We asked Chipper, and Chipper said, I'll never forget it. Chipper said, JD's a guy that feels like he needs to be 100% to play. Well, once we get gone out of spring training, hardly anybody's 100% in here. And that's just, we play when you don't play when you're injured, but you can be sore and play. Yeah. And he's got to understand that JD Drew is so good that he helps us even if he's not 100% if he can play. Right. But he called him out publicly. JD Drew did not miss another game the rest of the year. If I don't think he
had a great season too. Might have been his best.
They might have rested him one time, maybe but look up that season that he was with the Braves. Look at the games played, the season that he had. That's Chipper Jones calling him out right there.
That was 2004.
It was only 1 year with the Braves, but look at the numbers compared to the other year, the games played.
Yeah, he hit 300.
Yeah. And look how many games he played.
145.
Was it high of his career?
No, he played, but this was 2 years later. He played 146 with the Dodgers and had another great season.
Right. But, and before that, he'd never played that many, right?
Before that, after that, he played 140 with Boston too and 139 with Boston. But before that point, no, it was 135 was a high.
Yep. And he had a phenomenal season. He started playing every game. All of a sudden, all the little stuff, getting nicked here, a little sore here. We didn't hear about it anymore. He wasn't never scratched again.
I just think it's such a mental thing that when you convince yourself that, then you almost convince yourself, even when you do play and you're unsure that you're not going to have a good game.
The other guy,
convince yourself, I can go out there and hit no matter what. You have a good game.
The other guy that Chipper called out publicly, and you probably remember this one, was Jay Hay.
Yeah.
Jay Hay was down in Florida rehabbing from a hamstring, I think it was, and they had expected him only miss a few games or something to go down there and rehab for only a couple of games or whatever. Well, it was dragging on a little bit. Chipper basically said the same thing about JD Drew. He said it respectfully. He said Jay Hay's a young guy. He probably doesn't know the difference between playing hurt and injured and playing hurt. But Jay's got to know that Jay Hay at 85% is better than what anybody else we're going to run out there.
I think he was in the lineup a day or two later.
The next day.
In Florida? Was it in Florida? I can't
remember. No, he was rehabbing in Florida. He came back up the next day he was playing is what I remember. The next day.
Yep.
Took off. I mean, Chipper carried a lot of weight with his words, and he was
peer pressure, man.
And you don't have many guys that are willing to call out people like that either. He was willing to, and it worked. I mean, it worked.
Yeah, I do specifically remember that because I remember. Yeah, I mean, you don't pay too much attention to stuff, but you're also aware of the stuff in the clubhouse. And when you're a young player like Jay Hay was, you're kind of trying to figure out what you should and shouldn't play through. And a lot of guys, they might not want to play through something because they don't want it to turn into something and get hurt. And you haven't learned what's the difference between like pain and an injury or discomfort and hurt. And so I think that was just a moment where he had to call him out and tell him like, hey, nobody feels good.
Yeah.
We're all out here. You got to be out here too. If you're able to go out and do all your workouts and all your stuff in Florida, do it on the field, man. We need you.
And Austin Riley said something to that effect when I was doing this story and asking him about playing every day. And and getting on a hot streak, and Snit being able to, he said, yeah, there's something to it. He said the way you get out of it when you're struggling is just more at bats. The way you start to figure yourself out even more and learn the game and more about yourself, I think, is just the more at bats you can get, the better it's going to be. I know it's helped me in my career being out there every day. He said because of 19, when he was a rookie, he said I would play against lefties and come off the bench. Kudos to guys who do that, like Pilar and Charlie Culberson. That's a tough role. I'm fortunate to be on a team where I do get to play every day. Yeah.
It's huge. I mean, even as a relief pitcher, the more I was out there, like the less time you have to work yourself into a bad habit, mentally, because you're out there. There's no time to really think. You're just playing and playing and playing. For me, if I pitched my third or fourth day in a row, you could book a 0. Because I'd just been out there the 2 days before. My confidence is high. I'm rolling. I'm comfortable on the mound. But if you gave me 3 or 4 days off, anything could freaking happen. I might give up a 5 spot because you get out of that rhythm, mentally and physically.
Mentor's like that. He says the same thing. He hates going. He was going to throw every day during the All-Star break. He ended up getting hurt right before, so he couldn't. But he said he hates the All-Star break because he hates not throwing that time. He said he was going to get a net so he could throw at home every day because he said he just has to keep his arm going.
Yeah, you just, you tighten up and you heal and little stuff moves different and you create a bad habit. You don't feel the same and you just get out of that flow. But when you're out there every day, it's like your body just keeps preparing for the next day.
But there have been 3 instances this year where Snit has kind of taken some heat for sticking with a guy who was struggling mightily. Olson was having a bad streak early. Austin was having a terrible time for a while. And Ozuna remember how bad he was? Yeah. Everybody wanted him just dropped, released. I mean,
I said it was time, and like the next freaking day he went off.
And then he went on another dreadful slump recently. He was 4 for 49, and Snit kept running him out there every day. Took off again, and now he's, Snit will stick with guys like Bobby did. He learned that patience from Bobby, and it usually pays off for these guys. I mean, they usually get out of it, and he'll ride them out, and then, who knows when they were going to get out of it if he just benches them for a couple of games.
The worst thing a manager can do is be reactive, and especially with the bullpen. I mean, every bullpen team that I see struggle is a guy has a bad game. He doesn't pitch for 2 weeks. You just sit on a bad outing. But even just you wouldn't know it, but where a guy's at in the lineup and the comfort they have means so much to him. I was, even as a pitcher early in my career, guys would come in, they'd be pissed they were hitting 7th.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the fucking difference? Just hit the ball. But there's just something to it, and the messages that are sent by getting moved up or down in the lineup, it can kind of compound what you're already feeling and your struggles. And it's like when they acknowledge you're struggling and move you in the lineup, now I know I'm struggling, and now I got to try harder to get a hit. But when your manager just has this like limitless confidence in you, like it never runs out, and he believes that you're going to get out of it. It's like there's so much less pressure to do it today. Like you have a bad game, then whatever. I'm still gonna be hitting 3-hole tomorrow.
Now, granted, it's a little easier to do when you got so many guys hitting. But remember, earlier there have been stretches this year where the offense was struggling.
Yeah,
it's hard to imagine it now when they're doing what they're doing. But there were a couple of stretches where hardly anybody was hit, but it just didn't last that long. But Snit stuck with those guys, and there you go. So
I mean, it's along the same concept of what we're saying, though, is that might be the day they get hot, and you send this message of putting Riley in the 7-hole. Now he's going up there like, I'm a 7-hole hitter,
Right.
Like it just right. The game is so mental that you just don't mess with good things.
So trade deadline came and went yesterday. The Braves didn't do anything sexy. Didn't go out and get the big starters. Some people thought they wanted to get, but we talked about that, what they would have had to pay. The price, there weren't many really good starters available. And some of the prices that people paid to get them are like, whoa. I mean, they're mortgaging the future and the Braves didn't need to do that. I mean, they didn't. Yeah, it would have helped them to get another guy, sure. But they weigh these things, and Alex weighs them, and he doesn't want to give up really good prospects for a guy that that might make them a little bit better, incrementally better, but it's not going to be the difference maker to win in the World Series probably. And they don't need a difference maker to
exactly. That's what I was going to say is this team doesn't really need a difference maker. I mean, there were years like when I was with the Braves, 09 or 10 or something like that, and there's like Ryan Dempster on the market. We're like, fuck, if we get that guy. And the next thing you know, Paul Mahomes walks through. No offense to Paul Mahomes, but it's not that's not that difference maker. That he's a good starter, but we needed that like bona fide ace or top of the lineup guy that you're looking at the postseason, like we can line up like this now. The Braves just need to get a few guys back, and their lineup's already where it's at.
Yeah, and that made it more challenging too, I guess in a good way for Alex though, because he said he talks to the staff, the coaching staff, and the training staff every day about these guys that were coming back because he wanted to be really on top of where they are. He wanted to get as close to the deadline as he could, talking to these guys, to the training staff every day about, okay, what are the chances not just that Max comes back and Cock comes back, but that they come back at the level they were at. And they told him, we really believe that there's no reason why he won't be. In other words, the way his rehab is going, the way he's throwing his rehab starts, the way Kyle looks throwing on the side without pain, that they believe these guys, especially Max, they think he's going to come back and be Max rather than Guy trying to get back to that. So if they had told him otherwise and said, I don't know what you can expect, if we can expect to get Kyle back at all. If they'd have told him that, there would have been more urgency to do it. But that's not what they told him. Same thing about Chavez and about especially Dylan Lee. They didn't think they had to go out and splurge and get the best reliever on the market because they really do believe Dylan Lee will be back. They wanted to get a third lefty, though, because Minter has been the only lefty really healthy for a while since Dylan Lee went down.
Hand's a hell of a pickup. I don't know how his last couple of years have gone, but his breaking ball, I guguarantee, is still nasty.
Look at his numbers last year with Philly. They were good. Yeah. And then 2 World Series innings, he's had a lot of postseason experience. He's I think it was a great pickup. Get another lefty. And then you get Dylan Lee back, you got 3 all of a sudden. And
that's a lefty that dominates lefties.
If you look at Brad Hand's numbers against lefties, they've always been great. Yeah. But the disparity now is really pretty extreme, lefty-righty. He's as effective as ever against lefties, though. Yep. I mean, it's like you're talking about way below 200 average, like 160, 70, and an OPS around 500 for his career, and it's below that right now for lefties. So for if they could just have him face mostly lefties, can't just only lefties, but he should be great.
You can, well, and you don't have to bring Minter in the 6th or 7th then for to clean up an inning, or it allows you to save him. And you just have so much more play with, they have some good righties that can get lefties out, but there's certain guys that, managers do the vice versa where they just bring in a lefty against a lefty that hits lefties well. But in this case, it's like when you have a lefty that can dominate a lefty, it just gives you so many more options to save those other guys and play with it. When Minter's your only lefty, I know Ohtani comes up in the 6th.
Yeah. Yeah,
I got to go Minter now. And then you get to the 8th and you wish you had him. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Speaking of facing lefties, Harris was talking about every time they faced Philly last year and late in the game, he knew they were going to bring in Hand. And he goes, oh, God, this guy got a battle to get through that. He hated facing him.
Yep. Yeah. And that's, I'm looking that plays too, knowing there's another one coming behind him.
I'm looking for his numbers. I had him in my story yesterday. If you got it up real quick, look at those numbers against lefties, though.
Hand's numbers against lefties.
Yeah, I'll look at them. I'll look them up right now. But
I don't have them up.
And here's the 5. Not only they got all those guys who've hit 10 homers, but they got Acuna and Riley hit their 25th today. So the Braves and the Dodgers are the only team with 3 guys with 25 or more. Albies has 24. Zuna has 22. The Braves have never had 5 guys hit 25 homers in a season. They're going to have 5. They're going to have 5, maybe push 30, or some that are already over 30.
A few years ago, they had something like a bunch of guys with 20, didn't they?
Yeah, they've had some with a bunch of 20, but never with more.
Oh, hand against lefties of 143 average, 480 OPS, 20 punch outs.
Yeah, no homers.
8 walks.
It's impressive.
No homer. 1 double.
It's impressive.
Triple. Yeah.
So they added that yesterday. And people just look at his 6 ERA. It's like, oh, whatever his ERA was. It's like, dude, forget that.
Well, especially when you're, it's one thing when a flamethrower that doesn't really have a secondary pitch.
Or his one. Yeah, 6 was Pierce Johnson.
He didn't have great numbers either, but
right.
Hand's got a 4.5 still. That's not what he normally does, but I think it's night and day if you're a breaking ball guy. like Chris Johnson or with hand. And man, I would throw sliders in Colorado.
Yeah.
And one would just spin middle, and you might even get a swing and miss because it's so bad.
Yeah.
And then you try to correct it, and it actually does what it's supposed to do, and you throw it in the dirt. And so you're just playing this guessing game every time you're there. It's like for a flamethrower, if you throw 100, you throw 100. But when you're a breaking ball guy and living off that breaking ball, it's a big deal. Those guys you want to pick from Coors.
If you think about it, that wasn't the good. Why did they get him anyway? With the slider being your key pitch. I mean, like you said, you don't get the same break there, man.
I just don't know. I don't think they have an answer for anything they're supposed to do.
They're trying everything.
Yeah.
But 140 now I'm looking at him too. I got him 59 plate appearances, 2.80 ERA and 55 appearances last season for the Phillies.
Yeah.
And in the shortened season, he led the majors in saves with 16 for Cleveland.
Yeah.
That wasn't long ago.
Yeah, and I think he started as a starting pitcher, right? And then the Marlins or somebody, I think it was Marlins, put him in the bullpen.
Yeah.
He took off as a reliever.
Yeah, he was a Marlins starter. I was talking to McHugh about him because I remember when he was a Marlins starter, I'm like, who is this guy? This slider, Jesus.
Yep. And then you let him throw that thing only in the pen. He threw 82 games in 2016.
Yates said he's a good competitor, wants the ball, likes to pitch a lot. He's one of those guys that kind of never turns the ball down. He's ready to go every day. And I think everybody knows what kind of stuff he has, the slider, everything. He said, I think he's very equipped to come in here and get some late outs for us for sure.
He's only 33. You know, I mean, he got called up at 21. So he's another guy where you're like, you've been seeing him for so long. They have a bad year. You're like, all right, he's old, he's done. But 33 is not. I mean, you can
not for a reliever. Yeah. So I had so they got Lee. We'll come back. He's about to start a rehab assignment. He'll be back soon. Chavez is still weeks away. They'll probably wait till September expansion, but he could be back by late August if they need him back. But when they get back, and I'm not even counting Nick Anderson or Chavez in this, but just when they get Lee back, they moved out Daysbel Hernandez today. They called it a forearm inflammation. They had to make a spot for hand. So he was the guy to go to get put on the IL today. But they're going to have 11 relievers for an 8-man pen, not even counting Chavez and Nick Anderson. You got lefties, you got Mentor, Hand, and Lee.
That's solid.
And then you've got Pierce Johnson, Colin McHugh, Kirby Yates, Daysbel Hernandez, Joe Jimenez, who's pitched lights out.
Yeah.
He's nasty. Now we're seeing.
I didn't get too excited about him early on, but who he's been lately, I'm like, all right.
He's coming back from the back thing.
Yeah.
That he got scoped last fall, and it took a while, but he's the guy they wanted now.
Yeah.
Then Michael Tonkin and Ben Heller. That's pretty solid, man.
Yeah, I mean, the guys that you're talking about, we might have to leave them off the roster, might be throwing the 7th for a lot of teams.
I mean, we're not, Iglesias has been terrific lately. He's looked great. His
changeup is so good. And he's got balls. He never looks nervous.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the guy that they were expecting him to be now. Took him a while to get consistent, but it's a solid pen, and they got so many options that can pitch the 9th if they need them to now. They got so many guys that have been there, all these experienced guys, man, that you're not going to worry at all about putting them in the most pressurized situation.
Yeah, I always like that. I always like having a few guys that have closed. If you have an injury or a starter has to be down. I mean, I've been on teams where the closer's been, or a reliever has to be down, but the closer's been healthy all year. And you got all these guys comfortable in roles that have never really dabbled with the 9th, and the 9th's a different animal. You got guys on this team that have mentors closed. I mean, hands closed. You got guys that if one guy's down, you don't have to worry about that factor of can they handle the 9th.
Yates is closed. Menez is closed.
Yep.
He said, Mentor said, the more pieces you can have in a bullpen, the better off we're going to be. So I'm glad I have another lefty. I was the only one healthy for a while. He said, we know how important it is once you get in the postseason, how critical the bullpen is. I've heard great things about Hand as a person. It's more good depth. Obviously, maybe the only lefty down there the most part of the year. It'll be nice to have someone take a load off. And hopefully we get Dylan Lee back soon. Hand is a guy that's experienced at the back end of the bullpen too, so that's always a plus.
Yeah. And I mean, you think about like a situation where in the 8th inning there's a huge at bat and you need a lefty out. You don't have to use Minter tonight. He's available tomorrow.
Colin said, yeah, me and Kirby were just talking about the depth they have. He said, we were like, we've got a lot of arms, a lot of good arms. He goes, I think Alex's MO, at least since I've been here, what I've seen the last few years is he prioritizes depth over just about anything. So I think even starting the year, making sure that depth was there because we've needed it this year. And as he pointed out, he goes, as we've shown, even with the injuries they've had, being able to sustain the third and fourth best bullpen ERA in baseball through some tough injuries. They have too.
Yeah.
He said
they got to have some. They got a good vibe.
He said his hand is just going to bolster down the stretch. Brad's not only got a great arm, he's got experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, I think the trick is how do you keep everybody sharp? Because we're going to all slide into our roles, and there's going to be guys that don't pitch a lot. There's going to be guys that pitch a lot. That's just the nature of the bullpen. But I know Cranny and Snit have been around for a while, so they know how to do that. I think when you're coming down to August and September, where you start managing the games a little bit different, I think that's kind of when everybody's going to be able to step up and get the ball and be able to produce on a high level.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like what they did as far as making sure they filled making sure you got another. I love, we didn't even mention it, but I love the Nicky Lopez pickup. And I hate seeing Charlie's back in AAA again. He's not going anywhere. He lives here. He loves being he's in a great spot at the end of his career. This guy they got is such an upgrade defensively. Nicky Lopez, you're talking plus glove. I mean, this is a defender at any of the positions. So now if you lose any of those infielders, and he even played first base the other day, started a game at first for the Royals. But if you lose your, second, short, third, he's going to probably give you better defense than the guy that's playing that position right now. He's that good. He's not going to hit. Right. But that's fine. You don't need him to hit with this lineup. You just need a guy that can fill in at third base for a few games if somebody gets a little injury, nicked up a little bit,
Well, fill in at a lot of spots.
Yeah. He can play the outfield too. He's played every position but catcher. So that's a good pickup. Great clubhouse guy too. Loves, he's been with the Royals the whole time, so he kind of was bittersweet for him. But he loves the fact that he's joining a first place team, and he fit in seamlessly on this team too. First day he's talking to everybody.
Hey, I'll see you guys later. I mean, exactly. It's been fun, but I might go get a ring, and I might not even have to do anything to get it.
He and his fiance set November 2nd for their wedding date. They planned it last winter. She goes, "Are you sure these dates are good?" He goes, "Oh yeah, they'll be fine." And now he's like, "We might have to postpone." He goes, "But she'll understand."
Yeah.
They had a whole weekend thing. They had a whole first through the fifth thing planned, a whole long weekend thing planned. So yeah, you might have to, man.
Yeah, that's rebuilding teams don't really mess up your offseason plans.
Yeah.
You can book a lot of stuff ahead of time.
So yeah, that was a good quiet pickup there. They didn't give up much at all to get him a AA 25-year-old pitcher.
Yeah. Whatever.
Oh no, for him, they even get for him. That's who they gave up for Hand. For him, they just gave up the guy they just got for the Rangers who was terrible in his one outing for the Braves, Hearn.
Yeah.
The lefty. That's all they gave up to get Lopez. I don't even know what the Royals are thinking. I mean, I guess they see Hearn's got those 98. He's got the stuff. He's a 6'6" dude. Maybe they figure,
they got time to fix him.
We'll take a shot. We might potentially have a guy who can pitch in our rotation for the next 4 or 5 years. That's what they got to be thinking because he certainly doesn't have the numbers to do it, but he pitched fine in AAA, so good for them. But the Braves got what they needed from this guy. And the other thing was he was making 3.7 this year, and he's already eligible, so the Royals are going to non-tender him. They're not going to pay a guy $5 million next year. Yeah,
I mean, unless he goes off, No,
I'm talking about the Royals though. They wouldn't. He was a backup for them too.
Oh yeah.
So they weren't. They were going to non-tender him.
Yeah.
And the 1 year where he got to play every day as shortstop, it got off, man. He had a great year. Hit 300. This dude is like, if you look at it, there's like, you won't find another person that's had a career like him. His 4 or 5 years. He's been like a no WAR player, like a negative a couple of years. And then the 1 year where he played shortstop all year, he had like the 11th highest F WAR in the majors. He had a 6 F WAR, like higher than Moustakas had for the Royals.
Yeah, he hit 300.
Yeah, he had 300 and played plus defense. It's just crazy.
I mean, those are situations like a guy like Garcia could find himself in. But look at the year he's having this year playing every day.
Exactly. From utility to all-star starting shortstop.
Yeah.
Yeah, he heard that story. This guy heard that story the first day he got here because he
probably kept him going a little bit.
He said he remembered Garcia when they played against him, in the American League when the Royals played against the Brewers, and he said the guy looked like an all-star back then when he was playing short for the Brewers.
Yeah.
And when they had some interleague against him, he said he looked like an all-star back then. And then, he had kind of lost track of him a lot, but now he saw him. So, yeah.
Timing, man. Timing is so important in this game.
Anyway, all right. Well, that's where they are. The Braves got a big series going up to Chicago. Got a day off and then a 3-game series with all-day games, man. The weather's like beautiful too, like 80s with low in the 60s at night, high in the upper 70s, low 80s.
Cubs better hope that wind's blowing in.
Well, you saw it blowing out with what happened last night. They hit 7 bombs. Dansby hit 2.
Did they?
7. They matched the record. Franchise
that
record.
Stadium without the bleachers in center and in the outfield, blocking any wind. Wind just cuts right through that stadium. It's like the wind's like 10 times more effective in that stadium than it is anywhere else.
The way it affects a game, it could be like there's no balls going out today to right to left or right wherever's blowing in, or like anything hitting the air is going out today. No other places at extreme like that. Nowhere.
Yeah, I pitched there my rookie year. And it was extra innings, so I had to be facing guys like Soriano and Derek Lee.
Yeah.
And I probably gave up what should have been 3 home runs and wound up going 4 scoreless, because it's like it comes off the bat and I'm like, well, that's ball game. I just got walked off. And then I see, left fielder coming in for it. Crazy stadium.
It really holds it up, man. And then other ones look like they're going to be a pop 5. There they are. They land in the basket. Home run.
Yeah, and then you get one, when the wind's blowing out and somebody actually gets one, it's going like 40 rows up dead center.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or out of the stadium, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll do another one after the Braves play the Cubs and Dansby and have a little reunion. First game's against Dansby. Be interesting to see what he's has to say about the Braves, watching from afar.
Garcia's really limited that blow, huh?
Man, he has diffused that, and Olsen to a degree with Freddie as well.
Yeah,
and
that's crazy. I mean, we talk so much about you can't lose this guy, you can't do this, and
you can't keep gambling that you're.
What do I know?
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like Alex knows a little bit more about putting together a team than I do.
Me too.
All right, 7:55 is real. We appreciate it, everybody. Thanks. We'll see y'all again soon.